I have an uncle. Well, he's not really my uncle, and he's actually kind of an idiot, but in Hmong terms, he's an uncle. When I was young, he was less repulsive and actually pretty close to my dad. One weekend, my uncle and my aunt visited us. They had just moved into another home. It was the second one in just a few months. When my grandmother and my mother asked my aunt why, this is the story she relayed as I remembered it. My aunt and uncle lived and still live in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. They moved into a duplex because it was big and the rent was cheap. As soon as they moved in, strange things started happening. They would hear voices. They would hear noises that were out of place, and then see shadows moving around their house. One night, as my uncle and my aunt laid in bed talking, something tried to come through the bed between them. I know, it was some Freddy Krueger kind of things. My aunt said that she actually saw the outline of a man levitating the covers in between them. This scared the ever-living crap out of her. One day, when my uncle wasn't home, my aunt was doing the laundry. She had a basket of clothes and was heading towards the stairs. She looked up, and in the hallway was a little figure. It looked like a person, only it was shorter. The thing suddenly came at her. She said it actually touched her and pushed her backwards into a closet. It then locked the door. She heard laughter from the other side of the closet door. After several seconds, she got the door open and ran down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, she stopped and looked back upstairs. At the top of the stairs was this figure. It was short and black with no face. That was my aunt's description, not mine. The final straw came a couple of nights later. My aunt had a dream that a Hmong man came into the house. The man asked her who she was and why she was in his house. He wanted to know where his family had gone. She then suddenly woke up with a cold sweat. They finally talked to the neighbors who were also Hmong. The neighbors confirmed to them that a Hmong family had lived there a few years before. One night, when the father was home alone, there was a break-in and the thieves shot and killed the father. That was enough for my aunt and uncle. A couple of weeks later, my uncle found another place and they moved out. I had a Hmong friend share this story with me. His aunt and uncle rented a new house. It was one of those older homes that were built in the 1960s. It was a two-story home that looked big on the outside, but was not that big on the inside. The house was a 3-bedroom house with all 3 bedrooms located upstairs. The mom and dad slept in one room, the grandma and the 2 little girls slept in another, and the 3 older boys slept in the last bedroom that faced the backyard. This bedroom had an overhanging roof just under the bedroom window that covered the back porch. The house seemed fine when the family moved in. After a few weeks, though, the boys began complaining about noises coming from the window. At first, it was just tapping. Then it sounded like someone was trying to open the window. The boys were too afraid to open the window shades and look. At first, the boys would just jump into one bed together and to wait for the noises to stop. Usually, it never lasted more than several seconds. One night, though, the banging got louder and the boys bolted from the room to tell their parents. The dad just yelled at them and told them to go back to bed. Their mom said that it was probably just a raccoon or something. After that night, it went quiet. Then, a few nights later, it happened again. This time, though, the window shook like it was going to lift right up and break the old window lock. The boys ran out of the room screaming. The parents once again got mad at the boys and made them go back to the room and sleep. One night, the dad decided that he would sleep in the boys' room and show them that the noises were nothing. The first 2 nights, the dad slept in the room. Nothing. Finally, one night, the dad heard the tapping. Then the noises got louder. It sounded like someone was working the window and trying to pry it open. It began to shake and rattle as if someone was jiggling it from the outside. The father held his breath as his boys began crying from fear. Suddenly, the dad sprang up and pulled the strings to the window shade. Nothing. The noises stopped. It was a cool, clear night. No one was outside the window. A few days later, the grandma started talking to the old Hmong lady who lived across the street that lived with her own family. The old lady asked the grandma if anything had happened in that house. The grandma told her about the strange bedroom window noises. The old lady just shook her head and then explained to the grandma. Another Hmong family used to live in the house a couple of years back. The 2 sons had some bad friends. The sons weren't bad kids, but they hung out with the wannabe gangster kids. They used to have a couple of them over every so often. The bad kids also lived in the neighborhood just down the street. One weekend, the family went out of town for a family thing. The wannabe gangsters knew this and decided to come over and rob the place. Because they had been inside the house several times, they knew what they wanted to take. They also knew that the doors were double bolted, so they planned to climb up to the back bedroom window and break that window in. When the 2 bad kids climbed up, one kid kept watch while the other worked on the window. Unfortunately though, it was cold and the roof was slick with frost. The boy who was trying to break open the window slipped and fell 12 feet onto his head and snapped his neck. His friend climbed down and went to call the cops, but by the time the ambulance got there, his friend was already dead. After the grandma told the dad this story, he began to look for a new home to rent. They moved out of there 2 weeks later. Dang, those gangsta wannabe hood rats deserved it, not gonna lie. Interested in sharing your stories? Submit them to HmongChronicles@gmail.com or in the description below. Here is the next story. Thank you. One of my buddies had a cousin who was attending school in southeast Wisconsin. I don't remember which one it was, but I believe it was UW Platteville. School was over for the summer, and my buddy's cousin was driving home to Wausau late at night. It was really foggy and chilly that night. He drove a little slower than normal, just in case there were deers on the road or whatnot. He was getting really tired and fatigued. It was getting darker and harder for him to keep his eyes open. Out of nowhere, he hears a loud screeching noise come from within his car, right next to his ears. He looks around, kind of awake now and freaked out. The cousin said that the screeching came again and again. But unlike a physical noise, the screeching sounded like it was coming more from his mind. He then had an overwhelming desire to get off the highway. He explained that it was like an instinct. So he exits the next exit and finds himself in a small, weird town. Because it was dark and foggy, he got lost for a little bit longer before backtracking onto the highway. By this time, the screeching noise was gone and he was wide awake now. Within an hour, he was able to get himself back home safely. The next day, he talked to an uncle who was a shaman about the incident. His uncle said that it was because a spirit hitchhiked with him. The screeching noise he kept hearing was actually the spirit telling him to exit the highway because it wanted him to drop it off at the town that he exited off to. His physical body couldn't comprehend what was going on, but his spirit knew, so you could say it took over unconsciously to help guide the ghost on its way. Fortunately, the uncle said that it was a friendly ghost and they didn't need to do Jingle Bell for him. This story concerns my mother-in-law. She had been sick for a while, being stricken with cancer. She was taken home from the hospital so she could pass away peacefully at home with her family. During the few days before she passed, she was possessed and saw 3 demons or ghosts that were coming to get her. My wife recorded the first incident at the hospital. There she was, complaining that she was hungry, and even though my wife's family fed her, she was constantly hungry. Then on rare occasion, she would be chewing and chomping with her mouth. When they asked her what she was eating, she told the family that the ghosts were feeding her raw meat, and that's what she was eating. After she was released to come home, she would scream and get possessed. When she was possessed, she would have strength beyond anyone in the room. The family had tried to tie her down, and she would break the cloth holding her down on the bed. Mind you, she had been very sick and very weak. However, she had the strength of 10 men. Other times, she would speak in tongue, literally talking in mumbo-jumbo. One night, my sister-in-law decided to read the Bible to her. My mother-in-law twisted towards her and then, in a low, growly voice, taunted my sister-in-law, telling her that she knows what's contained in the Bible and that she's not afraid of the Bible. As my sister-in-law continued to read the Bible, the voice would then scream and ask my sister-in-law to stop reading. After a few minutes, the demon would go away. Whenever the demons came, the dogs would go crazy and bark like mad, making a large ruckus. However, these dogs were even scared of the demons because when they were in the houses, the dogs would run into the corner and cower in fear of what was there. Finally, right before my mother-in-law passed away, she informed the family that these demons were coming for her because she owed them a baby. They finally took her and she passed away. The funeral was crazy though. The last night of it, there were loud banging and noises coming from down in the basement of the funeral home, even though we all knew that no one was down there. For those of you who can see and hear ghosts, it gets really creepy sometimes. The latest experience I had was probably at work. The building I work for is old, that much I know. It has 4 levels, including a basement. Coworkers have said that it used to be a jailhouse. I work on the 1st floor, which is where they would let the prisoners roam free and watch them from above. There's this tiny closet that leads up to a flight of stairs that you take to another level. It's almost like being in the air vents, looking down, except there's enough space to walk and stand up straight. The building is haunted and there are lots of stories. For me though, I sometimes stayed late in the building or go in on the weekends by myself to work. One such weekend, I went in and it was getting to 6 p.m. Usually when the ghosts want me to leave, they start showing themselves subtly or making noises. I'm sensitive to them, so I usually pack up my stuff and leave. I know they don't want to harm me, but they don't like the lights and want to be left alone. It's an understanding between us, but only for the ones in the department I work for. I don't venture out of my department because I'm not sure what I will run into. The building is really that creepy. Well, it was 6 o'clock at night and it was starting to get dark outside. I was using the copy machine when I heard loud continuous banging, like someone was opening and closing metal cabinets. The first thought that ran through my mind was, when did someone get in here and bypass me that I didn't even notice? So I followed the sound and came up empty. I couldn't exactly pinpoint where the sound was coming from either. I even thought, is someone trying to break in? But no, the noise is definitely inside with me, and the windows are painted shut. So the noise continued, and since I couldn't pinpoint it, I decided to ignore it and get my work done so I could leave. Well, guess what? Ignoring it wasn't helping. Instead, what happened was that it got louder and more distinct to the point where I realized that it was right above me. It wasn't someone opening and closing cabinets. It was someone clearly walking above me in that vent area. Someone walking heavily on metal, which is what the vent is made of. And then it started stomping. It wanted me to go home badly. By the way, did I forget to mention that no one used that vent area passageway? Nobody goes up there. You'd think by now I would have peed my pants, right? Nope, not me. I had no idea why. But when these strange things happen to me, I don't scare that easily. Only afterwards, when I reflect back, then do I get creeped out and wonder why I'm not scared. Oh, you're so big and tough, huh? So what did I do? I told the thing that I wasn't ready to go home yet because I was still working on a project. Did it stop? Nope. So I started to get annoyed because it was causing too much commotion and the noise was intensifying. I got mad at it and prayed. Prayers always work. I prayed for it to leave me alone, and before I finished my prayers, it was like someone came and turned off the TV or radio. Complete dead silence. I didn't leave until 8 o'clock that night. That building holds a lot of craziness. When you go in, remember to shut your eyes and ears to all the strangeness around you. Don't let it get the best of you, and don't let them scare you, because they will try. Look, my life is worth more than a project. If it was me, I would be like, I don't get paid enough for this, I'm leaving, I'm outie. Strange things happened at my aunt's place. Their house was built brand new for them to live in. They have a young niece who has all her baby teeth, and she's extremely talkative. She would tell them sometimes that there is something in the bathroom, which was on the first floor by the kitchen. Of course, the family gets freaked out, but what can they do? So one night, I slept over at my aunt's place with my sister who came from out of town. She didn't want to sleep at my rental home because it has its own ghosts in there too. As we were getting ready for bed, I kid you not, I saw something in the kitchen. Something small, and it was running around in the freaking kitchen. My sister and I were sleeping in the balcony, which has direct view into the whole kitchen. She slept on the bed and I slept on the ground. When I saw the first thing, which was a blur, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. Oh no, not here too, I thought to myself. Sure enough, it started. The noise of running footsteps on tile intensified as it was playing. It ran around and around that stupid kitchen island, and I thought that it was never going to stop. I couldn't believe it. Not here, not with people around. There was a bedroom downstairs as well. This was shared by a family of 4, and they were awake in their rooms, and you could hear them talking. I could hear the loud footsteps, and they were banging on the walls as well. Anyways, there was so much noise, and it was chaotic. It started to creep me out when I kept on asking my sister, "Do you hear that? Someone is running in the kitchen. It's super loud. Tell me you hear it too." And she was like, "I don't hear anything." As suddenly as it came, it just stopped. My cousin that lived there tried to say that it was the chickens. Her brother had left some chickens downstairs, so they were just probably flapping their wings. But then her brother said that he already took the chickens out. I think that it must have been that little thing that the niece sees. What else could it have been, other than me being crazy? I remember my old house across from Burger King. I would always take those empty 1 gallon of water and fill it up with soda from Burger King. Until one day, someone said I can't do that, and then I stopped. Well, onto the story. When I was a little kid, my dad would make me go stay in the basement because I was really naughty. When I was locked up in the basement, I was talking with a little girl who I didn't know. I guess it was just a ghost girl or something, but she would come up to me and push me. As time passes by, the house was really old and we were susceptible to lead poisoning. The landlord kicked us out because the city inspectors said that it was not safe to live in there anymore. They tore the old house down, and I think that ghost girl disappeared. Today, that area is built into an auto shop to fix transmissions and engines. That's crazy. First time I heard about someone filling up those 1-gallon jugs with soda from Burger King.